preach at the age of, I guess, 20 or 19. What was that age? 20.
About 20.
20 years
19,
old. Reverend Sharpton started preaching at the age of 8 at the Brooklyn Pentecostal Church. And he started preaching, they called him the little boy wonder. So he started basically 19 years of age, 20 years old. He's been preaching ever since. Never been to jail, which is challenging sometimes, Tone, because sometimes the brother in Charlotte did have weed on him, but he still shouldn't have got tased in the back. But this is what we call a clear-cut case. So on Tuesday morning, because Monday is Dr. King's birthday, we will be going inside the Rock Hill Police Department. I will be walking in that particular police department. And Rock Hill has a black chief of police, which is, I've been in at least 13 cities, Gina 6, just left Troy Davis funeral in Savannah, just left his protest in Jackson, Georgia. Been to New York, and Rock Hill chief of police, who's a black man, is the worst cop I've ever sat down with, or worst chief of police I've ever sat down with. And this is in all these different cities that we go to, including Gina 6. Why? Because he told me that there's no profiling going on in Tone X and Rock Hill, South Carolina. Our city is perfect. And I said, Reverend Sharpton told me that South Carolina sends 110,000 blacks just to jail a year. He said, so that's an obvious sign of police profiling. That means 110,000 people, not prison, just go to jail. That means you ride that Cherry Road, right? Me, Tone X, and Mr. Welcome. And if I'm black, and I'll run up down Cherry Road, maybe for about an hour, play my music real loud. It could be Kirk Franklin, gospel. Doesn't matter. The odds of me being pulled over is very high. And that's what's going on in Rock Hill. So what do? So on Tuesday morning, we'll be walking into the chief of police office. We will file a complaint. And then when he leaves there, I'm taking him straight to my lawyer's office, which is Osiris Hinton, who just moved here from Spartanburg, South Carolina. He's been taking all of my Rock Hill cases, and he's won all of them so far. He's been here for about 6 months. He hasn't lost a case yet. So we're going to be sending him to Osiris Hinton. And then the other action plan is that sometimes you have to use civil rights to put them on blast. You have to use civil rights as a flashlight. So we're going to go back in front of City Hall, which of course this weekend, Mr. Maisel and Brother Bishop stood in front of City Hall this weekend announcing their issues. CN2 ran that over and over to expose it, because sometimes you have to put individuals on blast. Khalid Muhammad was a minister under Minister Farrakhan, and he had talked about how freaky the priests were in the Catholic Church. And he said every now and then he said the Pope has a robe on, and he talked about lifting up the robe. And he made a comment like that in reference to lifting up the Pope's robe. Now, he wasn't being disrespectful to the Pope. He was just saying every now and then you got to unveil the covering. Y'all know what's going on at Penn State. Somebody unlifted something. Sometimes you have to unlift that robe to really see what's going on in the inside. And the sad thing is that Rock Hill don't want you all to know that this is a bishop. You definitely don't want him to know that he's never been to jail. You definitely don't want to hear the 5 white cops mocked him while he was in the jail and used the N-word. They don't want that. I wish it was on video. See, Rodney King was lucky because somebody had a camera. And so the situation that we have here isn't on camera, so we have to project that image. So I'm definitely encouraging all of them. And today, Community Voice newspaper is here. So they're really taking some pictures. Secondly, you got to realize that when Dr. King was alive, there was a lot of men in the community that was speaking out about different issues. Right beside Dr. King, you had Jesse Jackson. You could turn the corner, go inside the kitchen, you see Andrew Young. You bump into Stokely Carmichael going into the bathroom, and you even had James Abernathy that was right beside Dr. King. Matter of fact, Dr. King got hit upside the head with a rock so bad that James Abernathy had to pick Dr. King back up when they were in Alabama. So there were more men. But nowadays, as Hill Harper said on Monique, he said in 1973, he said 69% of black men were active in the community and active in their children's lives. He said, what happened, Monique? Because in 2011, it's down to 31%. So you got a large number of men not active in the community. And we have the sisters taking on that burden. Sisters are police officers now, the correctional facilities. When I went to Bishopville, I didn't see a male guard nowhere. This is a big prison, 1,600 men, and all the guards I seen were women. And y'all know how they look. So in saying that, we definitely got to step up our game as men. I think that the community would stop having so many problems if the men would stand up. See, in the 60s, we had the Black Panthers. In the 60s, we had Dr. King and SCLC. In the 60s, we had all of those groups, but most of them was fueled by men. So next, speaking of a case of a brother in Rock Hill, South Carolina, we have the mother. So now what we're doing is civil rights had to travel. Dr. King didn't get killed in his hometown of Georgia. He got shot in Tennessee because he was taken up for some sanitation workers. So now we're finding ourselves going to Kansas. Now, Tone, the only thing I know in Kansas is Toto, B. What was the Wizard of Oz? What mother name? What Auntie Annie? Yeah, that's all I know.
Fred?
And Fred, yeah. So the only thing I know in Kansas is that's my visual of Kansas. Now, I just called Miss Mazel's son. We've been on the phone. He already warned me. He said, John, before you come in here, we're supposed to go there this week. He said, before you come in here, I'm going to tell you they don't have any sugar in the tea in none of the restaurants. He said, there's no Bojangles. He said, I'm cutting my own hair because there's no black barbershops in Salina, Texas. So that's what we're faced with next week. No black barbershops. He said, get a haircut. First thing he told me, he said, get a haircut before you leave. So that's what we're dealing with. So I'm going to definitely introduce you all to an interesting case. Evidence is proven, DNA is proven, and yet they still have this individual in prison in Kansas, but he's from Rock Hill, South Carolina. So y'all give a quiet hand to Miss Mazel as she comes and tells us about her son's case and what we're going to be doing for him.
Thank you. First, giving honor to God, who's my Savior, head of my life. As John was stating, my son is actually currently in Kansas in jail, awaiting trial on a charge of rape. He went out on June 14th to celebrate his birthday with some friends. As John stated, there's not many of us in Kansas. Right. So he was out with some white friends, a couple of black friends, but the majority of the group was white. Him and one of the young ladies, at the end of the night, she took him home with her. They had sex. The next morning, she told him she was going to call the police and tell them that he had raped her. Now, we have a forensic and DNA report that came from the state of Kansas Bureau of Investigations that says the biological material comes from an unknown male. But yet and still, they are still holding my son. Because as far as the state of Kansas is concerned, they're still going to try him for this rape. Right. Now, I don't pretend to know how to read a DNA test, but most DNA tests say that you have to be 99.9% in order for you to be guilty of something. Right. But they are trying to try him and find him guilty based on 0%. They have no evidence against him other than this girl's word and her friends. This is the only evidence they have, and the fact that sex did take place. Now, my thing about this case is, in order for you to find unknown semen, there had to be sex after she had sex with my son. Right. But once my son was taken down to the jail, they said they were only talking to him. And I have another son that eventually went back to Kansas because, as in Genesis 4:9, it says, and the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth out unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. So what I told my son was, he said, well, Ma, I don't know what you expect for me to do. I said, that's your brother, and you are your brother's keeper. A friend of mine, my best friend, is the one that actually initiated the call to John. And once I talked to John, I told John, I understand that biologically, you're not related to my son, but because he is your brother, you are your brother's keeper. Right. Mm-hmm. So John said, this is something that I want to fight for. I want to go to Kansas. I want to see what can be done. So we have been frantically trying to raise the funds to get John to Kansas. Because one thing that I told my son, you're not fighting just against man. It's unforeseen forces that are standing in the midst of all of this. Because, as John stated, the majority of the prisons are made up of black men. Right. The women have to carry the families. There's no such thing as a child saying, my daddy went to work yesterday. Most children are going to say, well, my mom's at work. Because if it was not for women, where would we be as far as a home? The children wouldn't have a parent. Now, I had a mother, I had an absent father, but he did make periodic visits into our lives.
Okay.
But I had a strong role model of black women that were there to teach me the things that I needed to know. And the one thing that I always told my son, because their father was absent, the one thing that I always told them, I can teach you how to do anything except be a man. Because I don't know what it is to be a man. Only thing I know how to be is a woman.
Right.
I taught them how to cook, taught them how to clean, taught them you respect a woman. You don't put your hands on her regardless of what she does to you.
Right.
So in saying that, I know that what they're saying my son did is untrue, because I raised him to respect a woman. My question to him was, when you get upset with a woman, I said, before you hit her, think about how you would feel if someone was hitting your mother.
Works every time.
And first thing that came out of his mouth, he said, "Ma, if a man ever hit you, I would kill him." Okay, so don't you think that woman has someone that will be ready to kill you?
Right on.
But as I stated, he's not only up against man, he's also up against something more wicked. And Ephesians 6:12-14 tells us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in evil days. And having done all to stand, therefore having your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness." So this is why I'm coming to you, because we are standing up against something much more powerful than we can fight alone. But if we fight in numbers, we can defeat the enemy, and my son will be home. Because the way I look at it, my son is just like any other black man, can be picked up at any time.
Right.
Can be falsely accused of anything at any given time. I never realized how easy it was to have someone arrested until a few weeks ago. A friend of mine, her daughter and her boyfriend went to pick up his child. The mother decided she wanted to have them arrested, so she called the police, got a friend to tell the police that the ex-boyfriend, the child's father, had struck her, and told them that her daughter had communicated a threat, and they both went to jail based on a lie. I never realized that it was so easy to have someone locked up until then. All you need is someone to tell the lie and someone to stand there and back the lie up with you.
That's it.
So as I leave you, I just want you to have this thought in your mind. Just think about this being your husband, your son, your brother, your nephew, your uncle, facing these charges and not having anyone to give him a voice. What would you do in this situation? Thank you.
And her son, who's actually out there, he actually quit his job.
No, they wouldn't let him have to go back to the job.
We're going to go back to the job. So he actually is out there working on his brother's case. His name is James Johnson. We did create a website. You can find that on Ms. Mazel's page. Email address,
The website address is www.freemaj.com.
Say it again.
www.freemaj.com.
We're going to make sure everyone gets a pen and write that down. We'll definitely give that to you after service. There's a pen pal link to that page. As a matter of fact, it's on the front. It has her son's picture in the middle, picture of Dr. King on the left in jail, and picture of Malcolm X on the right with his prison incarceration picture. And any donation from $1 to 1,000 helps. All the proceeds are going to our flight arrangements, and also for legal defense fund. His bond is
$100,000.
His bond is $100,000, which means, of course, you all know 10–15%. That's $10,000, money that during a recession most people don't have. He has a result to using a public defender. So what we do with civil rights is that I make sure the public defender knows that he has the backing of civil rights, the backing of THUG, which is endorsed by Reverend Sharpton. You have to let the public defenders know that you have a different type of force that's going to be in that particular courtroom. And it has helped. In York, South Carolina, I was a young black man, 16 years old.